Hey all you super players out there, Ben Lourdes aka 5 Buck Lunch, coming at you with a deck profile for blue-yellow Krillin Control. This is a fun deck that I like to play a lot. I tend to like to play more control-y, like late game type decks. And I used it this weekend and won my locals with it, so I thought it was pretty fun and I'd show it with you guys. I'm not sure how good it's going to be post set 10. We'll have to see. It definitely draws a lot of cards and is good against the aggro matchup, but we'll have to see if it can take out some of the more control-y decks. A lot of this deck can be kind of transferred into the new Gotenks deck, and it'll just be yellow and you'll play Bergamos and stuff like that, in addition to a lot of the other cards that you're playing here. But, real quick, I want to talk about the leader and Energetic Frenzy Kefla because that's kind of the core of the deck. So the way Krillin works is on the front side. When he attacks a leader card, you can choose a card in your life, add it to your hand, and draw a card, so it's the old yellow Broly effect. Then at 4 or less, you choose one energy and switch it to active. He actually doesn't draw when he awakens, but that's fine, because on the back side, when he attacks, he draws a card, and at the end of the turn, he draws a card. So he's one of the very few leaders that actually just blank draws 2 cards every turn for no cost at all. And then once per turn, you can choose one card in your hand, place it in your drop area, and he gains 5k power and critical for the duration of the turn. So you can use that to do things like get rid of extra cards that you have in your hand that you don't need and turn his attacks into critical 20k attacks. But the important thing about Krillin basically is you're just going to draw a ton of cards, and you have the ability to be a blue leader, so you can play things like Dimension Magic. So what the deck basically does is it draws a ton of cards and just outvalues your opponent. A lot of things you have are strong counterplays, things that stop your opponent's effects, things that draw you more cards even, or untap your energy. So it's basically a bunch of ways to outvalue your opponent, and eventually they're going to run out of cards. This also fights very well against hand control decks, so if you're having problems with things like the new Green Frieza deck, or Slug, or anything like that, this fights very well against that simply because of the fact that you're drawing so many cards every game. And there's nothing your opponent can really do to stop you either because it's on your leader, and because you self-awaken, they can't just like stall you out, not attack, and discard your hand. So I want to talk about Energetic Frenzy Kefla first. She's a 7-drop. Only one of this card can be played in your battle area. Permanent reduces the cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each of your blue battle cards. So you can only reduce the non-specific costs, which means at minimum she can cost 3 since she's 3 blue specific and 4 generic. A lot of times you're going to be playing her for 4 on turn 4 just because of how how long it takes to get those blue battle cards out there. And then she has active main once per turn, draw 2 cards, and at the start of your opponent's next main phase, choose up to 2 of your blue energy and switch them to active mode. So not only does she come down and immediately provide a draw 2, you can also play her and tap out because your opponent, you're going to be able to untap 2 energy on your opponent's turn. So that's kind of the central idea to the deck, is we want to be untapping energy and drawing cards so that we can prevent our opponent from making plays and just kind of slowly gain advantage. Now, since she needs multiple battle cards in play, we're going to be playing a bunch of 1-drop blue battle cards that we can play on the first couple turns, including a 4 of Isekai Keeping Watch, which when you play it, draws a card, and then during your turn, if your opponent plays a battle card, they have to choose 1 card in their hand and place them up on the bottom of the deck. This card is actually really good. Stops counter plays, counter the put-in-play counter negates, things like Topo. It just punishes your opponent every time they play one. So they either have to commit resources to getting rid of this card, or they can't disrupt your plays anymore, either of which is just fine for you in this deck. It also replaces itself immediately and provides a 1-cost blue card, so you can get Kefla down easier. For the other put-in-play draw card, we're playing Burner Spawn's Borgos. When you play him, you draw a card, and then once per turn, during your opponent's turn, if they switch an energy to active mode using a non-awakened skill, choose up to 1 of your opponent's energy and place it in the drop area. We're basically using this to counter other mono blue decks. We're going to be using it in order to stop things like Untap Goku and other aggressive decks that use Senzu Bean from overwhelming us. It also just replaces itself and draws a card and is a blue battle card for Kefla. We're also playing 4 of Master Roshi Universe 7 United. This is just a blue counterattack that plays itself. Don't be afraid to, like, on turn 1, play Isekai, on turn 2, play another Isekai or Borgos, and then drop your negate immediately. You don't have to save this. It's more important to get your blue battle cards on the field for Kefla than it is necessarily to have it late game. Not that having negates late game is bad. We're also playing 3 Senzu Bean. So the reason we're playing these is so that we can protect our leader from rush decks, is a big thing. Also, sometimes on turn 3, if you go turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and get 3 of these down, you can actually untap with Krillin, untap with Senzu Bean, and drop Kefla on 3, which is very strong. It doesn't happen very often, but it is a play you can make. Now, for other bombs that we're going to play, we're going to be playing, obviously, our Secret Rare, Power Patara. Very good Secret Rare. It goes down to 5 if your opponent has 6 or more tapped cards, or 6 or more energy, and then when you play it, draw 4, tap 4 of your opponent's cards as Triple Strike. Usually this is just ending the game immediately. The other bomb we're playing is Dragon Fist SS3 Son Goku. It's a 6-drop with Barrier Double Strike, and then when it attacks, you can choose one of your opponent's cards, ignoring Barrier, bounce it to their hand, and then untap 2 energy. So once again, we're having ways to untap our energy, and this can essentially out any card in the game that isn't indestructible. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of counterplays in this deck, since we can untap energy with Dragon Fist, Kefla, and just not play energy. A lot of times on turns like 3 and 4, if you don't have Kefla, you're just leaving all your energy open in order to counterplay your opponent. So I'm going to go through all the counterplay options that we have. So we're playing 2 You're Wide Open. If your leader card is blue and the battle card is playing is cost 4 or less, return it to its owner's hand instead of being played. We're just using this in order to, a lot of times, counter plays, but also it's usually just good to stall your opponent's big play for a turn. We're playing 2 Frost Deadly Poison. So the reason we're playing 2 of these and 3 Gina Martine when they do a similar thing is this can work on any battle card that doesn't have Deflect. It also untaps 1 and draws a card if you're at 3 life or less. Whereas Gina Martine, you get the body, but it can only negate cards that cost 5 or less. So if we want to negate big secret rares or big powerful cards, or we want to tap them down, we want to use Frost Deadly Poison. And then we have Gina Martine, which is actually another powerhouse card in this deck. It's counterplay. If the battle card being played has an energy cost 5 or less, negate its skills and play this card for the turn. And then it has Aegis, which means during your defensive combo step, you can discard a blue and a yellow, or a blue-yellow, untap 2 energy, and then this allows you to draw 2 cards. So once again, we're untapping energy and drawing cards, which is basically what this deck is trying to do. So when your opponent attacks, even if you're tapped out, you can say, alright, no negates. Then after that combo, you can borrow Aegis, pitch a, Imwe and Amamo you didn't need, or an extra Gina Martine, draw 2, untap 2, now you can make Senzu Bean plays. Now we are open to counterplaying their next thing. It's just a lot of options we have. And also it pitch 1, draw 2, which is always good. We're also playing 2 Ultra Instinct Goku the Unstoppable. This is just kind of a catch-all card, since Goku can stop anything that doesn't have Indestructible. It's for 4, it's counterplay or counterattack. It can't be negated by your opponent's skills. When you play it, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring Barrier, return it to their hand, and if it's your opponent's turn, draw a card. Like I said, this is just your super get out of jail free card, but a lot of times you won't need it. A lot of times these other counterplays will just be more efficient, so we're only playing 2 of them. Also, since you draw so many cards, you're going to see it at some point. We're playing 2 Hit Deadly Vanguard. Kind of like the Goku, it's a little more situational, but it's very good against things that are going wide, things like Vegex. It's counterplay. If the card being played has an energy cost of 5 or less, it is returned to its owner's hand instead of being played. Then play this card, and it costs 2 less during your opponent's turn, so it only costs 3. And then when you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, energy cost of 5 or less, return it to its hand. So basically, he comes down, whatever they were going to play goes back to their hand, and you can bounce something else. Which is very good against go-wide decks like Vegex. This is a very good card against that. On turn 3, if they try and, for example, play Hatchiak 5-drop, you can go, alright, Hatchiak 5-drop goes to your hand, and your other card that was still on the field, also to your hand. We also play 4 of Giant Ball. This card is just really, really efficient. It's a counterplay. Select the card being played, changes to rest mode, draw a card. So not only can we switch something to rest mode, but we draw a card. One thing to note, this does not get around Barrier because it selects the card. But don't feel afraid to just throw these out basically whenever in order to save life. Especially once you get down to 4 life. You can just drop Giant Balls pretty much whenever because they replace themselves. So you basically lose nothing and you just get to stall out your opponent. One other important thing is that we're playing Zamasu Sacred Disbelief as our super combo rather than playing a draw super combo. Since we draw so many cards, we really don't lose much by playing a super combo that doesn't draw. And this is great at stalling out our opponent. If they stick a battle card, then they start attacking with their leader. Now you can just tap their battle card, do things like that. You also tap down their leader, which is very relevant a lot of times. and you can play it whenever. It also allows us to play 2 of Bojack, Resident Agent of Destruction, because we can combo that and then do his Arrival for 1 yellow without having to combo 2 cards. Bojack is a blocker, Arrival blue-yellow for 1 yellow, and then when you play him, you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, switch it to rest mode, and place the top card of your opponent's deck in their drop area. So you can do things with this combo, like if your opponent has 2 battle cards on the field and they attack with something, you just Sacred Disbelief to protect yourself, then play Bojack, you can tap down their leader and battle card, and now their whole turn is spent. So, like, it just enables you to stall out a lot of things. Then we can drop, Kefla, Dragon Fist, bounce it back to their hand. It just becomes very hard for your opponent to get actual attacks through at you. Let's see, what haven't we talked about yet? Okay, we're playing 4 of Beerus Fickle God. Since we're playing so many multicolors, pretty obvious. We're just going to play our Check Energy. And then we're also playing 3 Inway and Awamo, I think, Universe 1, Destroyer and Angel. Stupid Dragon Ball names. So he is the Energy Destroyer and Angel, which means that he can come and play untapped by removing a yellow and a blue from your drop. And since we don't have anything that interacts with our drop, it's very easy to put him in play untapped later in the game, which is very nice. Also, though, this one is one you can actually just play, because he has active main for 1 blue and 1 yellow. Choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, place at the bottom of their deck. Then at the start of your opponent's main phase, choose 2 of your energy and switch them to active mode. And one thing to note, is that this is not once per turn. So if we play him on like turn 6, we can go, alright, 2 cards to the bottom of your deck. I'm going to untap 4 energy at the start of your turn. So it's just a big multi-use card. It's another thing that can actually permanently get rid of stuff if you need, say your opponent played a Secret Rare and you Giant Balled it, and next turn you need to get rid of it. Well, there you go. That puts it to the bottom of their deck. Another nice thing about that effect is it untaps 2, so you can use this in combination with Kefla. Now you're basically untapping all your energy and leaving open your counterplay abilities. Another thing we have in here kind of as a splash is 2 Disposonic Subversion. I didn't really like him that much when I was playing it this weekend, but I can see in certain situations where it might be good. So he might be relegated to the side deck, we'll have to see. But he has a 2-drop. Auto, when this card is... return this card to its owner's hand, choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand. When your opponent plays a battle card with energy cost greater than your their current energy, choose that card and return it to its owner's hand, and then when this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill or KO, draw 1 card. So this is basically going to be against things like, sticking it for Vegex is nice, because if they try and play like one of their 4-drops, you just bounce it to their hand, take a life, you're closer to Awakening. It's also good against decks that are heavy on Arrival, decks like Surge Broly, where you can bounce their Liquor play, things like that, and then your opponent can't really get rid of it easily, because if they get rid of it, you get to draw a card. It's basically just a placeholder you can drop on turn 2, but it does slow down like your Kefla plays, so you really only want to play it against decks where you know they kind of have to play higher cost cards in order to advance their game, basically. So it's a decent card. I think it might be relegated to the side deck because it's really not useful in certain matchups. I had it in there. Wasn't terrible. I only played it like once and it didn't do much. But against certain decks, it's quite nice. I wish you didn't have to take the life. The fact that you have to take the life to bounce the card makes it a lot worse. Especially in our deck when we don't really want to take life because we want to draw cards and take life. Let's see, I think... Oh, and 4 of Dimension Magic. Nice and easy. Dimension Magic. Best negate in the game. So yeah, that's the Krillin Control. Like I said, the first couple turns, you're going to be wanting to be playing your 1-drops, kind of defending yourself. Don't be afraid to go down to 4, because once we hit 4, we're going to be drawing a bunch of cards. And then we want to drop Kefla on preferably turn 4. Sometimes it might come out to 5, depending on how aggressive our opponent is. Sometimes it might come out at 3 if we get really lucky with a Senzu Bean play. And then we just negate all of our opponent's stuff, make everything come and play tapped, drop a Dragon Fist, and close out the game. So it's pretty easy, pretty simple. Usually with this deck, you're going to be wanting to not play cards rather than play cards, so if you're afraid of something your opponent might do, just leave your energy open and wait another turn. You're drawing more cards than them, so it's on them to kind of make the play. So yeah, I really like this deck. It's really fun. I'm probably going to be playing this when set 10 comes out, possibly switching Stormfist Krillin for the new Gotenks leader that punishes your opponent for playing extra cards, with a very similar card lineup, plus you get to play Bergamo because he's a yellow leader. But you lose Dimension Magic, so it'll be really interesting to see which is better. Either way, yeah, have any ideas, any new concepts to the deck? Let me know. Go out there, play some Super, and have some fun.